Hello, everyone. This is Stacy. Welcome to the landing.
Today I am honored to sit down with a dear, lifelong friend, a gifted storyteller whose Down East roots run deep, anchoring him in faith, goodness, and the enduring values of home. He carries deep gratitude for his parents and for the home that shaped him, a place where faith was planted, character was formed, and the foundation for a meaningful life was built. He understands the strength of memory, how the stories we carry, the lessons we inherit, and the people who raised us ground us in who we are and guide us where we can go. He knows the power held in a name, the importance of knowing your people, your purpose, and your place in this world. Each day he strives to be a better man, walking with humility, grace, and a heart for helping others. Join me as we welcome a man whose life is a testament to heritage, gratitude, faith, and the timeless truth that knowing where you come from helps light the path ahead. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the landing. I am excited about the young man that I've got with me today. We've known each other a long time, and I can't wait to catch up and get reacquainted with each other because it's been too long. So, sir, if you will, go ahead and tell everybody your name and who's your crowd and where you're from.
Yeah, this is Stephen Willis, and I grew up on Red Hill on Harkers Island, North Carolina. It's now still a big part of my heart. So, and you called me young, Stacy, because I'm just a few months younger than you. So
we're young.
we'll always you'll always call me young.
Uh-huh.
So that's good. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Yes, well, we are. We can't. Sometimes I see folks that are our age, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we're getting old, but I don't realize it until I see other people. It's funny.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Now, who is your crowd on Red Hill?
Yeah. So Billy and Melba Willis, and always told people it's the second brick house on the right. So it's hard to miss us. You go by the old Paler home place and past what we called Fisherman's Inn Road. And our house was right on the other side of that. And we're blessed to know that my mom at 84 still lives in the same house. And I guess I probably have a blessing that very, very few people have in a very transient world today. And that's the house that I literally grew up in and has always been there since I was born, and obviously long before that. So it is really the old home place. And so I was just there just a couple of days ago, visiting my mom, and always trying to find time to get back and get back home.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yep, you are blessed to have the original home place because I go by where I was raised and I miss it. There's so many memories there in the yard and in the house, and there's just nothing like it.
Well, that home place of yours has a memory of mine too, because that's where I showed up to be able to pass chemistry. So there was a smart girl named Stacy Davis who was in my chemistry class, and she was gracious enough to help poor little Stephen get through chemistry. I think I would still be in Barker's chemistry class if Stacy Davis didn't sit in front of me.
Oh
And
my goodness.
what does Stacy do now for a living?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
She's
Still
she's
teaching.
teaching.
Still teaching.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't mind doing it a bit. I think we laughed as much as we learned.
It was a lot of fun
Yeah, we
for
had a good
sure.
time for sure.
Okay, so Stephen, as you mentioned, you and I were very close in age, so we grew up together. But if you don't mind shedding a little bit of light on what you remember when you think back to growing up on the island.
Yeah, what's so weird is that I interviewed Kerry a number of weeks ago, and he shared the story, and there's 12 years between Kerry and I, but
Mhm.
it's really really wild how, even though there was more than a decade that separated us, that we had a very very similar story. Obviously different faces,
Mhm. Mhm.
but the same story.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to grow up with you and also your cousin Richie, who was right down the road.
Oh yes.
And then, Carrie talks about Corey being a part of that, but Carrie watched Corey grow up, and I kind of grew up with Corey.
Mhm.
And so a
Yes.
lot of those memories are precious to me. And Corey is obviously a big part of everything that's Harkers Island. But for me, he was like the Huck Finn of Harkers Island growing up. We never knew what we were going to get into. He was a few years older than I was, so
Mhm.
I try to keep up with him, and so it was him, and Patrick Humans lived right across the street, and
Yep.
Chris Brooks lived around the corner,
Mhm.
and our yard, our backyard behind mom and dad's house, it seems smaller than it used to be, but there was probably three or four different basketball hoops in that backyard, and it also became the football field
Mhm.
where a lot of us would gather, and it would become a baseball diamond, according to whatever time of the year it was. It was kind of, that was what was being done, right there on Red Hill.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. And every one of those names you named, I love. Oh my goodness. Stephen, do you remember going to the sand hole? I know Carrie mentioned the sand hole.
That was the big part of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the things that really that was Saturday, was the sand hole, right? I mean, you'd get
Yes.
lost in the sand hole on Saturdays. And yeah, it was everybody was decked out in their camouflage and their fake guns, and we would build forts, and
Mhm.
that was a highlight. That even brings up other names. I think
Mhm.
about Bunky,
Yes.
and I think about Bruce Lewis, and I
Yes.
think about James Lewis, and I mean
Yeah.
everybody that was around my age would
Mhm.
find themselves in the sand hole on Saturday. And it's
Mhm.
kind of wild that that's kind of been trapped in time, right? Like you can,
Yes.
I've over the years I've walked my boys back there, and told them stories, and
Mhm.
that's kind of a neat thing. And
Mhm.
really, I've always lived off the island. After I graduated from high school, I went to college, and other than coming home on the summers, I never lived on Harkers Island permanently again.
Mhm.
But over the course of the last 2.5 decades, I have made sure to get my boys back there. And I'll be
Yes.
honest, they share. It's home for them, even though
Mhm.
they never lived there.
Mhm.
That's what's it's really neat that my three boys, especially, they love to walk the island, walk Red Hill, walk Johns Creek. It's a big part of who they are, even though everybody would consider them dingbatters.
Yes. Yes. I know. And that is, I know this is probably true for you. It was important to me that my children love Harker's Island.
Yes.
I wanted them to love it as closely as I did, as we could recreate it, because it's changed so much. But and of course we do that by those stories and that we share.
Well, and I think that's what's so legendary about island people, and especially Harkers Island people. They are storytellers,
Mhm.
and I am one of those storytellers. And my boys, they know the stories, of these people and of these experiences. And it was a special time. I know Carrie said it in the interview he did, like mom did, she locked us out of the house,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
And I'd get on that bicycle of mine, that Team Murray, and I would ride all over the island with not very many cares in the world. And there's
Mm-hmm.
probably some people on Harkers Island that were pretty upset when I'd show up their house at 7:30, 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, ready to have a good time
Ready to
because I
go.
I was I was an early riser, right?
Yes, yes, you are. I don't know if you, well, I do know that you probably remember this, but you mentioned all the boys that would go to the sand hole. But then around midday or so, there'd be a group of girls that would walk through there, and it would be me and Marianne and Johanna and who else? Um, oh, I can see them just as good.
I remember it.
Yep,
You'd walk the main the what would be the main drag of the sand hole.
yep, that's right.
Yeah,
Tara Asdenny.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, Tammy, sometimes we'd go, but we would go out there and if we could find you so that we could ride on the four wheelers or, we could we could play as much as we could with y'all and play hide and
Yeah.
seek and tag. And yeah, was it four wheelers or three wheelers then?
It was both. Yeah, it was about time when they made the switch.
Uh
As a
huh.
matter of fact, me and Patrick Yummins, we dug a hole on top of one of those hills and put a sheet of plywood over it and covered it back up with sand. That was what we did one day. And if my memory serves me right, Paul Landon rode up on top of one of those hills and didn't realize what we had done and fell through it on his three wheeler.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Oh my
so
goodness.
he got out of it. It wasn't that deep of a hole. He
Uh huh.
eventually got out of it, but I think it was Paul Landon who did that. So yeah, we spent a lot of time and energy building forts and yeah, it was a special memory for me
Yes.
for sure.
Oh, so fun. So fun. Well, now you mentioned going to college. Where did you go?
Yeah, so I graduated from East Carteret, and really going to college wasn't an idea I had until about my senior year of high school,
Mhm.
because I actually was the first 4-year college graduate out of our family. Dad had actually dropped out of school as a senior in high school, and Mom was like the salutatorian of her class, but she obviously graduated and became got married and became a mom.
Mhm.
And but yeah, I went to Campbell University,
Uh huh.
and really it was really 4 great years of my life. And I went there with and got a degree in education, social science history education, and
Mhm.
then from there graduated and moved to Burlington, North Carolina, and I actually taught government economics, U.S. history, and coached basketball and tennis for 3 years in Burlington after I graduated from college.
Oh wow, Stephen. Now tennis. You played tennis in high school and was right. You were very good at it.
Yeah, I played high school tennis. I actually played well, I say I played basketball. I was on the basketball team my
Mhm.
freshman year at East
Mhm.
Carteret,
Mhm.
and got a little bit discouraged by the not a lot of playing time. So
Yes.
after my freshman year, I just decided to stick to tennis, and so that became my sport in high school.
Mhm. Yep, I do. I remember that very well. So how long did you teach in Burlington?
Yeah, so I taught, like I said, I taught 3 years. I taught
Okay.
3 years in Burlington, and
Mhm.
then really it was during that season of my life where I really just had this sense that I wasn't going to be in the public school system for a long time. Honestly, if I went back to it at the age of about 14 years old, I went on a trip with the Free Grace Church, the Illinois, and it was a
Mhm.
youth event, and it
Mhm.
was kind of during that season as a 14-year-old that I did feel this compulsion, this call that was placed on me to be a pastor. But to
Oh
be honest with you,
wow.
being 14 years of age, being a pastor wasn't on my hit list of things that I really wanted to do.
Right.
And so it took nearly about a decade. Well, no, it wasn't quite a decade, but it was
Mhm.
about 8 or 9 years before I ever really stepped into that.
Oh wow. Now, when you decided that that's what you were going to do, was Carrie or Billy Joe, were they pastoring at that time? How was the
Yeah, well,
time?
Carrie was already a pastor in Harrisonburg, and Bill at the time was still banking in Morehead City. He was a
Okay.
banker over at BB&T.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really the Virginia connection. Out of the blue, I called Carrie when I was really trying to discern what my future was going to become. That he helped me kind of walk through the discerning process of
Mm-hmm.
whether or not I felt like God was calling me to do that. About that same time, I met Lisa, which would be eventually be my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so as I talked to my brother about this call to ministry, a call to be a pastor, it was through that he had a good friend that was a pastor of another church and was looking for a youth pastor. And
Oh.
so as a high school teacher and coach, it wasn't a big jump
Uh-huh.
to be
Uh-huh.
able to transition. Pretty much kind of interviewed at this church with the determination that I would go back to school and get all the necessary coursework, for
Mm-hmm.
ministry.
Right.
And so I actually lived 3 years in the Shenandoah Valley, south of Cary, in the town of Waynesboro,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I was for 3 years as a youth pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 3 years of ministry there, I had the opportunity to become a lead pastor in Lynchburg, Virginia. So after 3 years of being a youth pastor, the church in Lynchburg, Virginia opened up, and I interviewed there, and that was it'll be 25 years in August that I've actually been the lead pastor at Compassion Church.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think it's going to work out.
I think you're, yeah, you got a future in this, kid. Uh-huh. So how long were you married then before you for all of this happened, the move and all the things? Or the
Yeah, so that is a great question, and you'll think this is really funny. I actually interviewed for the youth pastor position when me and Lisa was engaged, and so we were engaged to be married. They offered me the job, and I went back to North Carolina, finished the school year out at Burlington Cummings. Me and my wife was married in June after school was out. She's a school teacher as well.
Mhm.
And after we got married, went on a honeymoon and immediately relocated to the Shenandoah Valley. So
Wow.
I've been in ministry the same amount of time that I've actually been. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So 28 years, 25 years in August as a lead pastor. And then obviously the 3 years um, having the opportunity to be youth pastor. So
Mhm.
28 years total. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, now, so then Bill became a pastor after you then,
Right.
right? So, I mean, when we think about it now and we think about the Willis boys, the Willis brothers, I mean, every one of you, you have the demeanor, you have the conviction, and of course, you're pastors. I mean, yes, I can totally see it. But now, what does your mom think about her three sons all following the call? Have you ever had that
Yeah, it's
conversation?
yeah, it's really wild. I think that the essence of it was faith was fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
Faith wasn't just something that was a part of our lives. I mean, it was the essence of our lives, and we had a praying mother
Mm-hmm.
and a father who was a deep faith. And the thing about my mom and dad were they were the same people on Tuesday morning that they were on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think that authentic, real faith and a desire to follow God is something that I mean I just don't think it was something that we couldn't easily get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And Mom always talked about that. She had a burden for people who didn't know the Lord, and she prayed for those people. She just didn't realize that her three sons would be part of the opportunity to maybe reach those people.
Wow,
So
that's amazing. I
yeah,
love that. The same people on Tuesday as they were on Sunday. I love that. Oh,
yeah, yeah. It's
oh,
all it's all authentic faith. I think
mm-hmm.
is the essence of it.
Yep.
And and then from there, I'm the youngest of three sons, and I've got three sons, and
Mm-hmm.
I tell you a lot of the life lessons that my mom and dad taught me are I think they were some big boots to try to walk in trying to raise three boys myself.
Oh, yes. Now, how old are your boys?
Yeah, so I got Nick is 26, and he's actually in the Middle East right now. He's a nuclear propulsion officer in the Navy,
Oh, my
and
goodness.
so he is on the USS George Bush, which is right in the middle of the Persian Gulf right now. And then
Sure.
Camden's 25. He's a mechanical engineer, and he went to NC State, and he stayed in Raleigh, working for a mechanical engineering company. And then Micah is 20, about to be 21, and he's at Virginia Tech. He's a rising senior, civil engineering. So I got three sons and three engineers.
Okay, so let me just pause and say that my chemistry tutoring must have been really good because I'm sure Dad helped them with all their homework.
Well, Stacy, it didn't hurt, but you haven't met my wife.
Oh,
And
dang it.
so I'm going to be honest with you. Like this is a joke, but it's the honest truth. In dating, my wife told me what she got on the SAT. And when she told me what she got on the SAT, I would not tell her what I got on the SAT, and I will go to my grave not letting anyone know what I got because she told me first.
I love
So
that.
that is a true story. And actually, to tell you how gracious my wife is, a number of months, actually, it's been about 2 years ago, we moved from one house to another. She actually found my SAT scores and she didn't open them and she gave them to me. And that it
Oh,
wasn't that nice of her.
that was very nice of hers. I don't know what
Yeah.
I would have done. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but but we'll just leave it at that. Now, what does
Yeah.
your wife teach? Does she still teach or no?
Yeah, she's a school teacher. She actually has two jobs, and she's virtual school teacher now. So
Oh,
she
good.
teaches public school from home, and then she also teaches for Liberty University online. So she
Mhm.
does two gigs. But she
Oh,
was a public school teacher in in the classroom for until about a year and a half ago.
oh, gotcha. Now, what subject
Yeah.
does she teach?
She's
Science?
She's an English
English?
teacher.
Hey,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which
that's
is great because me being from Harkers Island, I need all the help I can get when it comes to the spoken English language.
spoken
So,
language. Yes, I'm an English teacher, and that was something that people would always chuckle at when I would say, I'm going to be an English teacher because they would look at me confused, like, but how? You're from Harkers Island, It's
yeah.
like, yeah,
Let me tell you a funny story about that.
yes.
I was in Delaware. I was up there for a ministry opportunity, and I was in a hotel, and I was walking through the lobby, and I had an NC State hat on, and the
Of
guy that
course you
walked by
did.
me,
Of course you
yeah,
did.
and the guy that walked by me, he said, "Go Pack," and I said, "Go Pack." And I said, "Are you from North Carolina?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Where?" And he said, "If I told you, you would never hear of it." And I said, "Well, tell me." He said, "I grew up in a little town on the East Coast, the eastern part of North Carolina called Newport."
Oh
And
my
I
goodness.
smiled at him and I said, "I'm from Harkers Island." And he looked at me dead serious and he said, "You're not from Harkers Island." And I said, "Yes, I am absolutely from Harkers Island." He said, "If you were from Harkers Island, I would know by the way you're talking." And I said, "Well, it's high tide on the sound side, Sonny, and I've been momic today." He said, "You are from Harkers Island." So I turned it on for him, and my
Uh-huh.
wife still to this day says that whenever I cross the Harkers Island Bridge, something clicks on in my brogue that
Uh-huh.
shifts. So I guess I can find it if I need to.
100%. I think, yeah, the shift begins when we turn that East Carteret corner and we roll
I'm
down the
with you on that.
window, can smell that marsh, it starts clicking then.
I believe you're right.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So now, Stephen, everything to me, it sounds like has worked out pretty good for you. When you look back at your young self, even your 14-year-old self that you said, did have the inclination that something was going to happen. I mean, why would you tell that 14-year-old you?
Yeah, I mean, I lived, when I was 14, I talk about that, and I'll be honest, there was a season of rebellion away from that. I didn't want to be a pastor, and like a lot of teenagers and young adults, like there was a season where, I wanted to have it my way and do it my way. And so it wasn't until my early 20s when I really did get serious about my faith. I really lived a lot of my early teen years kind of straddling the fence.
Mhm.
I'd have one foot in the world and one foot in the church, and so, but it really, to be honest with you, early 20s, I had gotten to the place where there I was, on the outside, everything looked good. I was a successful school teacher. I was coaching ball. I had a sports car. I had
Mhm.
the nice clothes, but
Yeah.
there was just a void in my life. There was not anything that really was grounded. And it was
Mhm.
during that really I just kind of had a crisis moment where the faith that I no longer was living out, trying to live out a fake faith that was my mom and dad's. It was something that
Yeah.
I had to own. And so
Yes.
it was in that point where I really came to understand that if I was going to really discover what my life was supposed to be about, I'd probably need to make sure that I followed the creator who created me, who would tell me what that was.
Mhm.
And so that's really, I mean, the essence of my life is just that,
Mhm.
is when I got out of myself and began making decisions that I felt like were honoring to God. That's when things really turned around for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's kind of like the idea that when you plant wheat, you don't get watermelon, right?
Right. Right.
It's whatever a man sows, he also reaps. And I think that it was the early 20s when I really did kind of align my life to what it was that the Lord wanted for me, that things began to kind of fall in place. Not that I always got it right. I've
Mhm.
messed up a lot,
Mhm.
made a lot of mistakes, but the trajectory of my life changed when I discovered, that call in my life
Mhm.
and deciding to follow what I felt like my creator had for me.
Mhm. I love that. And I know when we grew up, we've talked about the fun we had and the carefree feeling that we had of the world that we lived in. We were blessed that way. But church and faith was a very big part of growing up for all of us. I mean, we had church that we went to. It wasn't a question of are you going? I mean, we all knew that where we were going to be on Sunday mornings, and it was just a big part of everything. But I think about your church that you were raised in. I mean, my goodness, some of the leaders that you had, they had to be impactful on you.
Yeah, yeah, I could even look out of my Sunday school room and see you going to church,
Yeah,
because
we were so
our
close.
church is like our church backed up to your your parking lot. But
That's the truth.
no, yeah, no doubt about it. Had some people of significant influence,
Hmm.
and to be honest with you, it really began right at home. I mean,
Hmm.
really, I mean,
Hmm.
I just had to be honest. Like,
Yes.
what I went back to and said, really, I couldn't get away from the authenticity
Yes.
of who my parents were at
Yeah.
home. And then
Hmm.
I think about Oliver Griffin and Miss Carol Griffin,
Oh my goodness. Yes.
and some of the people that were just salt of the earth. Miss
Hmm.
Frankie, I think Miss Frankie, I think she I think she taught Sunday school class for like I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it was like 60 years.
Oh, I bet.
And
Oh, she's
and
so
then
awesome.
not only does she teach Sunday school class at the at Free Grace Church, she was the one who sold the pencils in the cafeteria
Yeah.
before school
Yeah.
at Harkers Island School. So I got plenty of hugs from her growing up. So
Hmm.
yep. So some profoundly impactful people in my life, no
Yes.
doubt about it. And I'm a debtor for that.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Really, it was the childhood that I had, not many people had. And
Hmm.
I think that's why the roots run so deep,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
about all my memories on Harkers Island are good memories of a good life. And
Hmm.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we're so so blessed. And I mean, when I say when I was growing up and I said I was from Harkers Island or from down east, I didn't realize how much that was going to mean to me in years to come, because that's
Mhm.
something that I treasure, about who I am is those roots that you mentioned that run so deep. Now, did you go fishing with your dad? I know your brothers have mentioned that. Did you do much of
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Mhm.
I worked on the shrimp trawler. I worked on the Lady Melba with Dad
Mhm.
enough summers to know that I didn't have a strong enough back to keep doing it. And so I worked on the Lady Melba, and I spent a lot of time back when I was on the boat with Dad, we spent a lot of time in Pamlico Sound,
Mhm.
and we would leave on Sunday evening after church. Dad always said because he was his own boss, he wouldn't work on Sunday.
Mhm.
So we would leave Sunday after church, and we would steam to Pamlico Sound that night. And if we got there and it was 11:57, he'd sit back and we'd drink a Mountain Dew and eat a honey bun. And then at 12:01 he dropped the nets. That was just who Dad was.
I
And
love
we
it.
would spend, so Sunday at 12 midnight till Friday evening, I would be on that boat on the Pamlico Sound as a teenager. And I'm
Wow.
not going to sit around and tell you that it was the most enjoyable time of my life,
No.
because it was, it was hard work, and Dad didn't really want us to do it. He knew how hard the industry was, and knew that international trade and a lot of things, scarcity of seafood. I mean, it was just a hard life.
Mhm.
And so I can remember my senior year of high school, I worked a number of weeks with him, and I was about to leave to go to college, and I can remember the conversation. He said, "Stephen, you can go to Campbell and get good grades and make something of yourself, and it'll make two men very happy." He said, "But if you go to Campbell and you don't do well, and you come back here and you have to get back on this boat with me," he said, "there's going to be two sad men." And he said,
Ah,
"Ultimately, it's up to you." And so I can remember the
wow.
first day I went to class. I still remember I went to a fine arts class on a Monday morning at 8:15 on a Monday morning,
Ooh.
and I walked across the campus that day, and I remember saying to God, "I know that I'm not the smartest person on this campus, but I do believe I'm the most grateful."
Oh, wow,
Because
Stephen.
I had never, like, college was not a lot of people, and I would even say you.
Mhm.
I mean, you were valedictorian or
Mhm.
salutatorian. I don't even think I can spell either. So, college was going to be a part of your DNA, and you were,
Mhm.
AP classes. That wasn't my case. So
Mhm.
when I ended up getting into Campbell and having a chance to go there, I made the most of it, and my
Mhm.
GPA in college was a whole lot higher than it ever was in high school because I actually cared and applied myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a difference. There's an ownership that you take when you go to college because it's all on you. You got to
Yeah.
do it. Got to put in the work. Were you
But
homesick
but
when you
I
went?
wouldn't and I also would say this, I wouldn't take those moments back for anything,
Mhm.
because those were some hard summers, hard work, and it gave me even a greater profound respect for my dad and for those who come before me,
Mhm.
and it taught me something about what hard work was.
Yes.
And now, as a man in my 50s now, I often look back on those things, and I think about how hard my dad worked, how much he sacrificed, really, to try to make a better life
Mhm.
for his boys. And I'm eternally grateful for that, because I've had it a whole lot better,
Mhm.
as it comes to that. My
Yeah.
dad really, it was in his blood. Fishing was in his blood. He didn't want to
Mhm.
do anything else. And
Yeah.
that was dad on the water was different than dad on the land.
Mhm.
And so, not that he didn't love his life, but it was a hard life.
Yes. Oh, 100%. 100%. I say that all the time still about my parents. I look at how hardworking they were,
Yeah.
and Stephen, growing up, they never complained. They never put their worries and burdens on us. They just would work
Hmm.
2 or 3 or 4 jobs. They would, just go, 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 go. And I look at
Hmm.
that now, like you said, as an adult and mother, and it's amazing to me, like the grace that they had about the hardships that they were given.
No, that's right. No, that's
Mhm.
exactly right. Yeah, the sacrifice was not something that they did. They sacrificed with the right attitude. Some people can
Yes.
sacrifice with the wrong attitude, and they
Mhm.
always sacrifice with the right attitude.
Mhm.
And my dad, really, all he knew was to work and try to make a living for us.
Yeah.
Ball was big for me, and
Mhm.
really, to be honest, because my dad was so busy trying to feed me.
Mhm.
Everybody on Harkers Island would show up, the Harkers Island school, to watch us play basketball. And I
Mhm.
think you were probably a cheerleader about then.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I cheered
but
for you.
often. Yeah, often Dad wasn't in that crowd because
Yeah.
he was so focused on trying to make a living.
Yeah.
And I know this podcast is sponsored by the Core Sound Museum, and
Yes.
I have a story about that. Carrie's been going for 30 something years down there
Uh-huh.
and sharing, and I've only gone to a couple of them,
Hmm.
but I was at the very first one.
Oh, yeah.
I was a teenager,
Uh-huh.
and the reason I was at the very first one was because that was about the same time I was running around with Corey, and David
Uh-huh.
told me to be there
Uh-huh.
because he had a job for me to do, and so I ran around I remember it like it was yesterday. I was at the very first decoy festival that they ever had, and there's something about that has always gotten on my nerves because on the very first one that they had at the end of the festival, there was about 200 or 300 posters left.
Uh-huh.
And if I would have just picked those up and carried them home, I wouldn't have to worry about working. I
A
mean,
missed
seriously, I
opportunity.
remember when the
Uh-huh.
cleanup, we were breaking down tables and
Mm-hmm.
breaking down chairs,
Yeah.
and there was all these posters. Who would have ever known
Yep.
what the Decoy Festival was going to be? I mean, if I could have gotten those 200 and convinced David Lawrence to sign all those for me, I would probably have a large beach house in Bermuda. Um,
Exactly. Did you even get one?
I got one and I brought
Okay.
it home, and it probably got bent 6 different ways. And probably eventually Mama ended up probably throwing it away. So that's my story of, close but no cigar might be the
Mhm.
story. It may be the epitaph on my grave. No, I'm joking.
That's so fun. No, we had no clue. All I knew was that I had folded so many T-shirts that I didn't want to see another one after that first year. And of course, I still help. I'm doing the gate now. I do it on Saturdays, and Dwayna does it on Sundays. And my daughter Darcy helps, and so I'm gonna pass the baton on to her before too long. But yep, still there, still doing.
Yeah, I tell you, and I've got to get back. I've only been to a couple. I mean, at the
Hmm.
weekends, Carrie puts it in a schedule as a speaking engagement, and
Yes.
weekends are difficult when you're a pastor. But I
Hmm.
remember that like it was yesterday. I
Hmm.
I remember walking by those 200 posters and thinking, man, if I'd have had an entrepreneurial spirit back then and knew what the Decoy Festival was going to become, it would have been a different game.
It'd have been all different. That's right.
Yep.
Oh, me, Stephen, I have enjoyed this and the time has flown. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you had wanted to share or has crossed your mind that we haven't touched on?
I would just say thank you. I said earlier in our conversation about the importance of telling story,
Mhm.
and I think most of us don't understand the impact of story.
Mhm.
And as a communicator, every weekend, I think that we really can harness the power of story to really get to what's important. And I think
Mhm.
that podcasts such as this and telling the story is just so instrumental in people's lives, and I'm just grateful for you making the effort to do that, and just grateful for all of the islanders and all of the people that
Mhm.
that are down there.
Mhm.
Just the camaraderie of I remember going in Billy Best's store,
Mhm.
and some of those old fishermen who were kind of retired and was hanging out there. I'd walk in the store and I could remember them saying, most of them were hard of hearing, so they thought they were whispering, but they weren't whispering. And I'd hear them say that's Gray Willis's grandson right there, and
Yes. Yes.
that to be known, and to know your story, to know who you are,
Mhm.
and where you come from. That's all of that matters.
Mhm.
It gives us deep roots. And in Scripture it talks about oaks of righteousness.
Mhm.
It doesn't say anything about pines of righteousness because pines, they break very easily. They snap. But these great oaks, these withering oaks that we have on Harkers Island that
Mhm.
have such an incredible root system, that is what Island Roots is really all about. And I'm really humbled and honored to have the opportunity to call Island home. And even though I look like a dingbatter, and some people accuse me of being a dingbatter, I'm not, because
No,
I'm
you
I'm
are
from there.
not. You are not. No. You send
Uh,
them my way if you catch anybody calling you a dingbatter. I got them. No, Mama used to say every time I left the house, like on a Friday or Saturday night, we'd head to Front Street and ride up and down the Front Street.
in
But
that white Chevy Beretta.
yes, yes, that's it. You got
Are
it.
you impressed that I remember
I
that?
am very impressed by that, actually. Yes, I am. And we would go, and she would, when we're heading out the door, she'd say, "I love you, be safe, and remember who you are."
Yeah,
And
that's it.
that stuck with you. I mean, anytime were faced with a decision, it wasn't real hard to make the right one because you remembered who you were and
Yeah,
whose you were,
that'll,
even more importantly.
that'll preach.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Stephen, I've loved you a long time, and this
Yeah,
has been wonderful. It's so
we
good to hear your voice.
we love your crowd, and
Hmm.
grateful for your life, friend. Anything I
Yeah.
can never do for you, let me know.
Well, I appreciate that, and you take care.
All right, friend. See you later.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you again for joining us to The Landing. This podcast is brought to you by the Core Sound Waterfowl Museum and Heritage Center. Tune in next week as we continue learning, sharing, and remembering together. If you'd like to hear more, check out our previous episodes where you get your podcasts. If you or someone you know is interested in being on The Landing, please reach out through the link in the description. Until then, stay safe and be kind.